The laughter echoed around the living room like glass shattering on tile. "Ivy, open mine next," Olivia chirped, her smile tight but dazzling. Her voice sliced through the noise with practiced charm, and every head turned to watch Ivy untie the gold ribbon. Ivy sat cross-legged on the plush rug, 8 months pregnant, trying to mask the swelling anxiety in her chest. The baby shower had been perfect so far: warm lights, pastel decorations, close friends, cupcakes shaped like rattles. Sean, her husband, stood nearby with a proud, steady hand resting on her shoulder. But the moment she saw the box Olivia wheeled in, her heart sank. It wasn't wrapped like the others. No soft tissue paper, no glittery bag. Just an old, battered cardboard box sealed with duct tape, the name Ivy scribbled in black marker. She peeled back the tape, ignoring the rising heat in her cheeks. A heavy, metallic clunk filled the air as she pulled out the contents. Her breath caught. It was a stroller. A used stroller. No, a broken stroller. The once navy fabric was sun-bleached and stained. The wheels squeaked unevenly, and one of the handles was wrapped in electrical tape. A frayed strap dangled from the side like a forgotten limb. The room fell awkwardly silent for a beat before someone coughed out a laugh. "Vintage chic?" someone joked. "Hope it still rolls," another giggled. Ivy forced a tight smile. "Thanks, Olivia," she said, her voice straining under the weight of humiliation. She felt every eye on her, some wide with disbelief, others narrowed in pity. But Olivia only sipped her champagne and shrugged. "It still works. Thought it'd be a nice throwback. You know. Sentimental." Sean leaned in, whispering, "You okay?" Ivy blinked, her eyes burning. "Fine," she muttered, placing the stroller aside as quickly as she could. But inside, her chest felt like it had been hollowed out. Olivia had to know what she was doing. This wasn't just a tacky gift, it was a message. And Ivy understood it loud and clear. The party carried on, but Ivy was miles away. She barely registered the games or the cake. When friends said their goodbyes, she hugged them absently, her mind replaying the moment over and over again like a scene from a nightmare. By the time everyone had left, the house was quiet except for the rustling of balloons swaying in the air conditioning. Ivy sat on the edge of the couch, staring at the stroller in the corner like it was a bomb waiting to go off. Sean emerged from the kitchen holding a plate of leftovers. "Want me to toss it?" "No," Ivy said quickly, surprising herself. "Not yet." He sat beside her, looking at the stroller, then at her. "Why would she give you that? Of all things?" Ivy shook her head. "That's Olivia. She has this way of turning everything into a performance. She doesn't care how it affects anyone else. That thing isn't a gift, it's a reminder. Of how she's always been the golden one. And I've always had to settle for scraps." Sean frowned. "You're not settling now. I know. But it still hurts. That night, Ivy couldn't sleep. The baby kicked against her ribs like it could feel her turmoil. At 3 a.m., she got out of bed and went into the nursery, where the broken stroller now sat beside a stack of unopened diapers. She approached it slowly, reaching out to touch the worn handle. A shiver ran up her spine. It smelled faintly of dust and plastic, like something exhumed from a forgotten basement. Her fingers brushed a small latch near the back. She pressed it, and something clicked. A compartment popped open. Inside was a folded piece of paper. Her breath caught again, but for a different reason this time. She unfolded the note with trembling hands. "Ivy. I know this looks terrible. Maybe it is. I just didn't know how to say this out loud. This stroller. It was Mom's. She pushed both of us in it when we were babies. I found it in storage last year and almost threw it away, but I couldn't do it. It felt like a piece of her. I thought maybe you'd want to pass it on, keep a bit of her with you and your baby. But I got scared. I didn't want to make you cry, or worse, make you angry. I should have explained. I should have told you what it meant. I'm sorry. I hope you can forgive me. Olivia." Ivy sank to the floor, the note trembling in her hands. Her stomach twisted with something between grief and guilt. All this time, she'd assumed the worst. That Olivia was mocking her, reminding her of their lopsided relationship. But the truth was far more complicated. She had no idea Olivia still held on to memories of their mother. Or that she thought Ivy might want to share in them. A sob escaped her lips, sudden and sharp. She clutched the letter to her chest, tears spilling onto the worn fabric of the stroller. The silence in the nursery was thick, broken only by her quiet gasps and the rhythmic sound of her baby shifting inside her. By morning, Ivy still hadn't decided what to do. Part of her wanted to confront Olivia, ask why she didn't just say all of this. Why she had to make it into a guessing game. Another part of her wanted to throw the stroller away, burn the letter, and move on. But a tiny voice in her heart, soft, stubborn, whispered something else. Maybe this was an olive branch. A badly wrapped, rusted, painful olive branch. But one all the same. And Ivy wasn't sure if she was ready to take it. But she was beginning to think she wanted to try. The house was quiet the next morning, but Ivy's mind was anything but. She stood in the kitchen, absently stirring her tea as sunlight poured through the windows. The broken stroller sat in the nursery, haunting her from just down the hall. She couldn't stop thinking about it, or Olivia. Sean padded into the kitchen barefoot, yawning. "You didn't sleep much." Ivy nodded, cradling her mug. "I couldn't stop thinking about that stroller." Sean leaned against the counter, watching her. "Want me to get rid of it?" "No," she said again, more firmly this time. I feel like there's more to it." He raised an eyebrow. "More than a bad gift with duct tape?" She gave a faint smile. "Yeah. I don't know. Something feels off. Or maybe unfinished." Sean rubbed his jaw thoughtfully. "You want me to take another look at it?" Ivy hesitated. "Would you?" Minutes later, they were in the nursery, both crouched beside the dusty old stroller. Sean ran his hands along the frame, inspecting the rusted joints, the frayed straps, the stained fabric. Ivy watched him, anxiety bubbling in her chest. "I still can't believe she thought this was appropriate," Ivy muttered. Even if it meant something to her, she could have said something. Not just dump it in front of everyone. Sean didn't respond right away. He was fiddling with something near the back of the stroller. "Wait," he said. "There's a latch here. It's kind of hidden." He pressed it gently. With a soft click, a small panel popped open near the base. Ivy leaned in, heart thudding. Inside the compartment was a folded sheet of paper. Yellowed at the edges, like it had been waiting there for a long time. Sean handed it to her. "Looks like you were right." Ivy unfolded the paper with careful fingers. It was a letter. In Olivia's handwriting. She read it silently, her eyes scanning the words, each line hitting harder than the last. _ Ivy. If you're reading this, it means I didn't have the guts to tell you in person. Typical me, right? I know how it looked. That old, beat-up stroller showing up at your baby shower like it was some kind of joke. It wasn't. I promise you, it wasn't. That stroller was Mom's. She pushed both of us around in it when we were babies. I found it in storage a year ago, buried under boxes of her things I never had the courage to go through. When I saw it, I cried for the first time in years. I didn't even know I could still cry like that. I wanted to give it to you, not because it's pretty or new, but because it's a piece of her. Of us. I thought. Maybe you'd want your baby to be part of that. To feel close to her in some small way. But I didn't say anything. Because I was afraid. I thought if I told you, you'd roll your eyes. Or worse, think I was trying to steal your moment. And maybe I was, a little. I don't always know how to show love in the right ways. I get that. I'm sorry if I hurt you. Olivia. _ Ivy sat frozen, the letter trembling in her lap. A lump rose in her throat, impossible to swallow. All her assumptions, all the resentment she'd let build over the years, were suddenly crashing into something much softer, something raw and real. She looked at Sean, her voice barely a whisper. "It was Mom's." He nodded. "Yeah. That explains a lot. I thought she was mocking me. I really believed that." Ivy blinked back tears. "I didn't even give her a chance." Sean sat beside her. "You had reasons. Olivia hasn't exactly made it easy over the years." "I know," Ivy said. "But still. I didn't expect her to care like this. Not about Mom. Not about me." She stared at the stroller again. It didn't look so cruel anymore. Still battered, still rough around the edges, but different now. Like it carried a history instead of a slight. Ivy stood and moved toward it, slowly running her hand across the faded handlebar. "She said Mom used this with both of us." Sean joined her. "That's kind of beautiful, in a weird way." Ivy nodded. "Yeah. It is. _ Later that day, Ivy sat by herself in the nursery, the letter unfolded on her lap once more. She couldn't stop reading it. The words danced in her head like echoes of a different time. Memories of their mother flooded back, soft lullabies, warm embraces, bedtime stories told in a low, soothing voice. She hadn't thought about those things in years. Olivia had always been difficult. Sharp-tongued, confident to a fault, the kind of sister who turned every room into her stage. But this letter peeled back something deeper. Something tender. Maybe she really did care. Maybe she always had. She just didn't know how to show it. That thought made Ivy ache in a new way. Not the bitter ache of resentment, but the ache of regret. Why hadn't she reached out sooner? Why had she assumed the worst? She pulled her phone from her pocket and stared at Olivia's name in her contacts. Her thumb hovered over the screen. She wasn't ready to call. Not yet. But she wasn't ready to ignore it either. Instead, she typed out a message. I found the letter. I understand now. Thank you. She didn't hit send. Not yet. She read it over, then deleted it. Rewrote it. The stroller means more than I ever imagined. I'm sorry for how I reacted. I didn't know. Still too formal. Another delete. Finally, she settled on something simpler. I read the letter. Thank you for sharing that part of Mom with me. This time, she sent it. A few minutes passed. Then her phone buzzed. Olivia, I didn't think you'd read it. I'm glad you did. Another buzz. Olivia, can we talk soon? Just you and me? Ivy stared at the message for a long time, then smiled faintly. Maybe they could. Maybe this wasn't the end of a grudge, but the beginning of something else. Something healing. The letter stayed on Ivy's nightstand for days. Sometimes she picked it up and reread the soft loops of Olivia's handwriting, letting the words sink in again. Other times she avoided it entirely, burying it under a book or shoving it into a drawer as if silence could protect her from the storm it stirred. Because the truth was, she didn't know how to feel. On the one hand, the letter had cracked something open inside her, a wound she hadn't touched in years. The mention of their mother, the image of Olivia crying over a forgotten stroller in storage, had softened Ivy's anger. She could almost see it now, her older sister standing in a dusty garage, holding onto a piece of the past like it might bring their mother back. But on the other hand, that moment at the baby shower still stung. She could still hear the laughter when she unwrapped the stroller. Still feel the red heat creeping up her neck. The awkward glances, the forced chuckles, the way Olivia hadn't said a word. Why hadn't she just explained it? A few words could have made all the difference. Instead, she'd let Ivy stand there, humiliated, like the punchline of some twisted family joke. The next time Ivy saw her reflection, tired eyes, hand resting protectively over her round belly, she sighed. You couldn't just say something, she whispered to the ghost of her sister's silence. Why is it always so hard with you? Later that afternoon, Ivy walked out to the garden behind their house, needing air. The late spring breeze fluttered through the lavender bushes, and for a moment, everything smelled like childhood. Like Sunday mornings. Like home. She sat on the edge of the wooden bench and let herself remember. The last time she and Olivia had truly been close, Ivy had been 17. Their mother had still been alive then, soft-spoken, warm, the gentle bridge between her daughter's clashing personalities. Olivia had always been the bold one. The one who took charge, never apologized, filled up every room with her energy and opinions. Ivy, younger by 4 years, had been quieter, more introspective. She'd often felt overshadowed by her sister's intensity, but when their mother was around, it never felt like competition. It felt like balance. But when their mother passed away, the equilibrium shattered. Olivia coped by becoming harder, brisk, impatient, emotionally closed. Ivy had tried to grieve out loud, to talk, to cry, to lean on someone. But every attempt was met with a wall. And so, she'd stopped trying. That's when the silence between them had begun. A silence years long. Until now. Now, Olivia had extended something unexpected. Something sacred. Not an apology exactly, but a memory wrapped in metal and fabric. That evening, Sean found Ivy sitting on the nursery floor, the stroller beside her. He sat down quietly next to her, not saying anything. The late golden light washed over the room, catching on the stroller's worn frame. Ivy traced her fingers along one of the scuffed wheels, then looked at her husband. It's not just a stroller, she said quietly. It's a message. Sean nodded. Yeah. I figured. She rested her head on his shoulder. I'm trying to forgive her. I want to. But I still feel humiliated. Like I was the last one in the room to know there was something deeper going on. And she just let me sit in that embarrassment. People carry grief in weird ways, Sean said gently. Maybe she thought if she spoke up, it would make things worse. Or maybe she didn't trust me with something that mattered to her. Sean tilted his head. Do you trust her? Ivy didn't answer right away. I don't know. _ 2 days later, Olivia sent a voice message. Ivy's phone buzzed while she was folding tiny onesies, her growing belly pressing uncomfortably against the laundry basket. She stared at the notification for a long time before finally hitting play. Ivy. Hey, Olivia's voice crackled through the speaker. She sounded unsure of herself, something Ivy had almost never heard. I've been thinking about everything. I know I messed up. I should have explained the stroller in the moment, but honestly, I panicked. I thought if I made it a big deal, I'd ruin your shower, or make it about me, which I didn't want to do. But I guess I ruined it anyway, huh? There was a pause. A breath. I miss Mom too. I miss how she always knew what to say when we couldn't. I'm sorry I didn't say this earlier, I was trying to share something special with you. I just didn't know how. The message ended. Ivy sat in silence, her throat thick. The baby kicked softly, as if sensing her mother's unease. She played the message again. Then again. By the third time, her tears had started. _ That night, Ivy wrote a letter of her own. Not to send, but to understand herself. Dear Olivia. I wish you'd told me what the stroller meant when you handed it to me. I wish I hadn't felt like a joke in front of everyone. But more than that, I wish things were easier between us. I miss you too, though I don't always know how to say it. Maybe this is the beginning of something new. Maybe it isn't. But thank you, for the stroller, for the letter, for trying in your own way. I see it now. I see you. She folded the note and tucked it into the stroller's hidden compartment, right where Olivia had left hers. Maybe one day, Olivia would read it. Or maybe Ivy would just keep it there, a quiet symbol of two sisters trying, stumbling, but still reaching for each other across years of grief and silence. The scent of jasmine hung in the air as Ivy waited near the entrance to the botanical garden, her hands gently resting on her belly. It was the same place their mother used to bring them on quiet weekends, just the three of them, winding through the flower paths, feeding ducks near the pond, picking favorite blooms to pretend they'd take home. Now the familiar path looked exactly the same and entirely different all at once. She didn't know what to expect from Olivia. She hadn't seen her since the baby shower, and though they'd exchanged a few short messages since the voice note, this meeting felt heavier. More vulnerable. Like standing at the edge of something fragile and waiting to see if it would hold. Then she saw her. Olivia stood near the archway of climbing roses, her hair pulled into a messy bun, arms crossed loosely in front of her, like she wasn't sure whether to stay or run. Their eyes met, and for a long moment, neither moved. Then Ivy took the first step. Hi, she said softly, stopping just a few feet away. Hi, Olivia echoed. Her voice was tight, and her eyes glistened just slightly. They both looked around awkwardly, as if hoping the flowers might offer an easier place to start. Want to walk? Ivy asked, gesturing toward the shaded trail ahead. Olivia nodded quickly. Yeah. That sounds good. _ For the first few minutes, the only sound between them was the crunch of gravel and the occasional chirp of birdsong. Ivy spoke first. I listened to your message, she said quietly. More than once. I figured you might have deleted it, Olivia said with a faint, nervous smile. No, Ivy replied. I didn't. They walked a bit farther until they reached the small wooden bridge overlooking the lily pond. Ivy leaned against the railing, catching her breath. Pregnancy made walking longer distances harder these days. I wanted to come here, she said, looking out at the shimmering water. Because this place meant something to both of us. And maybe. I hoped it would help us talk about things that are harder anywhere else. Olivia joined her at the railing, her expression unreadable. I'm sorry, Ivy, she said at last. Really, truly sorry. For the stroller. For the way I've handled everything since Mom died. I thought I was being strong, you know? But all I was doing was pushing everyone away. Ivy didn't speak right away. She traced a finger along the wood grain of the railing, gathering her thoughts. You embarrassed me, she said finally, voice trembling just slightly. At the shower. I felt humiliated. Like everyone was in on some joke except me. And it hurt. Olivia's face crumpled, guilt washing over her. I know, she whispered. I watched your face, and I wanted to explain, but I froze. I didn't want to get emotional in front of everyone. I didn't want to make it about me. I thought I could slip the note in, and you'd read it later, and maybe it would all make sense. But that wasn't fair to you. No, it wasn't, Ivy agreed. It felt like you were handing me a piece of junk and saying it was all I deserved. It brought up so much, every unresolved thing between us. All the silence. All the distance. Olivia nodded, tears brimming. I never stopped missing you, she said softly. Even when I didn't know how to reach out. Especially after Mom passed. It was like, if I opened up even a little, the whole dam would break. I get that, Ivy admitted. Because I was scared too. Scared that if I tried to talk to you, you'd shut me out again. That you didn't need me. I've always needed you, Olivia said, her voice breaking. I just didn't know how to show it. For a long time, the sisters stood there in silence, letting the air settle between them. Then Ivy reached into her bag and pulled something out. A folded piece of paper. I wrote you something, she said. A few nights ago. I didn't know if I was going to give it to you or not. But maybe it's time. Olivia took the paper, hands trembling slightly. She unfolded it slowly and read. Her eyes scanned the words Ivy had written in the quiet of her nursery, by the stroller, the second letter hidden in the same compartment Olivia had once used. By the end, Olivia was crying openly. She folded the note back up and held it against her chest. Thank you, she whispered. You didn't have to forgive me. I didn't, Ivy said. But I wanted to. For the baby. For Mom. For us. They sat down on a nearby bench shaded by a cherry blossom tree. The breeze rustled through the pink petals above them, some floating gently to the ground. You know, Olivia said after a while, I was thinking. If you're okay with it, maybe we could refurbish the stroller together. Fix it up. Add something new to it for your baby. Ivy looked over at her sister, surprised. You'd do that with me? Olivia gave a small smile. I think it's time we stopped carrying around all the old broken pieces and started making something new. A soft laugh escaped Ivy's throat, and for the first time in a long time, it felt easy to be near her sister. Not perfect. But real. I'd like that, she said. As the sun began to dip behind the trees, the sisters stood and began to walk again, slower this time, side by side. They didn't talk much on the way out. But they didn't need to. For the first time in years, the silence between them wasn't cold or distant. It was comfortable. Hopeful. The beginning of something healing. The afternoon sun poured gently through the nursery window as Ivy stood before the stroller, running her hand across the newly cleaned frame. It still bore scratches and a faded patch or two, but now, those imperfections felt like stories instead of flaws. It was no longer just a broken hand-me-down, it was a piece of her family's past, stitched together with memories, loss, and a hesitant kind of love. She hadn't seen Olivia since the botanical garden, but their conversation lingered in her mind like a song on repeat. It hadn't fixed everything, but it had cracked open something important, honesty, maybe. Vulnerability. Ivy didn't know what their next step looked like, but she knew she wanted to take it. The doorbell rang, and her heart jumped. She wasn't expecting anyone. As she waddled to the door, baby Elara rolling within her belly, she silently hoped. When she opened the door, Olivia stood there. She held a large canvas bag in one hand, a hesitant smile on her face. I brought tools, she said. Ivy blinked, then smiled. Get in here before I change my mind. Olivia laughed, stepping inside, her bag clanking softly with whatever was inside. She glanced around the nursery. You've been busy. I had to do something while my ankles doubled in size. They made their way to the nursery, where the stroller stood like a half-finished promise between them. Olivia knelt and pulled fabric, new wheels, and a handful of tools from her bag. Ivy joined her on the soft carpet. I thought we could finish it together, Olivia said. Ivy nodded. I'd like that. They worked in silence for a few minutes, focused on fitting the new wheels and cutting the fabric to size. Olivia's hands moved confidently, while Ivy's were slower, cautious, but steady. As they worked, the silence between them began to shift, not uncomfortable, but waiting. Olivia finally broke it. I found this fabric at a thrift store down the street from Mom's favorite cafe, she said, smoothing her fingers over the pale blue floral print. It reminded me of her Sunday dress. Ivy glanced at the material and felt a lump rise in her throat. The one with the little daisies? Yeah. She wore it every spring. Ivy swallowed the emotion swelling in her chest. That was her favorite season. She always said it felt like starting over. They shared a quiet smile before returning to their work. As they stretched the new fabric across the stroller frame, Ivy glanced at her sister. You know, after Mom died, I kept waiting for you to step in. To check on me. I was drowning, Olivia, and I thought maybe you didn't care. Olivia froze for a second, then looked down. I did care. I was just stuck. I didn't know how to be your big sister anymore. I felt like I had nothing left to give. I wish you'd said that, Ivy replied. Instead, I convinced myself you didn't love me anymore. I never stopped loving you, Olivia whispered. But I stopped believing I was allowed to show it. That simple truth, spoken aloud, felt like air returning to a long-sealed room. I want Elara to know her family, Ivy said. Not just through stories. I want her to feel it. To grow up around people who know where she comes from, even the painful parts. Olivia looked up. Then let's make sure she gets that. _ By the time the sun dipped low in the sky, the stroller was transformed. The blue floral fabric wrapped around the seat, soft and inviting. The wheels rolled smoothly, and a new cushioned handle gleamed in place of the old scratched one. Ivy took a step back, hand on her belly, admiring their work. It's beautiful, she whispered. She'll ride in something that carried both of us once, Olivia said softly. I think Mom would like that. She would, Ivy said. Sean poked his head in the room, his eyes widening at the sight. Wow. That thing looks like a boutique stroller now. Olivia chuckled. We had some inspiration. Sean nodded. Good to see you here, Olivia. She smiled. Good to be here. _ Later that evening, Ivy and Olivia sat on the porch swing, sipping lemonade as twilight settled over the neighborhood. Crickets chirped, and the scent of blooming jasmine floated through the warm air. You know, Ivy said, I used to think we'd never find our way back to each other. That too much had been said, or not said, for us to try. I used to think that too, Olivia admitted. But I realized something the other day. What's that? That maybe we don't need to go back to anything. Maybe we just start from here. New. Ivy looked at her sister and nodded. I'd like that. They sat in silence, the kind that didn't need to be filled. Ivy felt Elara stir inside her, a small nudge beneath her ribs. She's kicking, she said, placing Olivia's hand on her belly. Olivia's eyes widened as she felt it. Whoa. That's incredible. She's strong, Ivy said proudly. I think she gets that from the women before her. Then she's going to be unstoppable. _ As the stars began to peek through the darkening sky, Olivia leaned back and sighed. Do you think she'll ever know what this stroller meant to us? She will, Ivy said firmly. Because I'll tell her. I'll tell her everything. The good, the bad, and how we made it through. And maybe one day, she'll tell her sister, Olivia said with a grin. Ivy smiled, heartful. Maybe. They stayed there a while longer, watching the sky turn to velvet, knowing the road ahead would still have bumps. But the first step had been taken. Together. And that made all the difference.